probably ask you to confirm.
I think we're live, are we?
If you clicked it twice, then we are live.
I think we are live. Josiah, how was your weekend?
My weekend was excellent. My lovely girlfriend and I went to Indianapolis, where I'm from. Went to the Indy 500 and spent
Fun.
the weekend with my family. And yeah, it was a great weekend.
Is
We're
that
about we got the Indianapolis 500, for people who don't know, is the largest single day sporting event in the world every year. So 300,000 people, more than 300,000 people there every year. So we were sitting in the infield about, I don't know, 30 yards from the track where the cars go by.
okay?
Yeah.
And how is that compared to? Because honestly, I've never gotten the appeal of watching cars drive in a circle for 500 miles. The appeal of it. I imagine in person, it's got to be quite a different experience than watching in TV.
Yeah, it is. I think um I'm not like super into motorsports as such. I have some friends who are, but growing up in Indianapolis, the 500 is like,
The thing.
I mean, it's special.
Yeah.
You know, when you grow up in Indianapolis, the home of the largest single day, I'm gonna say it again because it's shocking, but like when you grow
300,000.
up in a tiny Midwestern city, you know, that nobody else thinks about, and then once a year, it's the center of the world, sports world, it's like awesome. So,
Wow. Sounds like
yeah,
fun.
it's
Yeah,
super fun. How was your weekend?
it was absolute zoo. We had 5 graduations in the last week. Three high school, a preschool, and an eighth grader, and then we just told them, look, one party, and so that Category 5 hurricane hit the house this weekend. But graduations are over, parties over. Now just kind of exhaling, recovering. And so, yeah, looking forward to summer. Absolutely pumped. And so we are looking forward to this summer doing more of these live call-in Q&A shows. So I just want to thank everybody who called in last week or sent in your emails. If you've got questions you're mulling around, you can email them to live@chastity.com. You could submit them through the Discord server. And either one of these you could do anonymously, or you could ask the question just by calling in through the Discord server, and we'll take your call live. Anything having to do with dating, relationships, human sexuality, gender, chastity, pornography, discerning your vocation, you name it. If it has to do with life, love, anything in between, we've got 1 hour now to take your questions live on any of that stuff. I know we've got some questions backlogged from last week we weren't able to get into, so I have not heard or seen any of these questions, so it's just kind of a live, we'll take them as they go. And so, Josiah, I think you've got the questions on your end, correct?
No.
Oh,
Um,
let's fire away.
so the first one is, and once again, anybody who sends an email question, I just keep it anonymous because they do tend to be sensitive. So, it says, I'm engaged at 32, and it has been hurting me how many people assume that I'm cohabitating with my fiance. People from church even assume this. I understand that it's common, but how do I keep this from hurting me? Um,
Well,
yeah,
one, I would say, think of this differently. Think of this as not about you. This is an opportunity to evangelize. This is an opportunity to proclaim rejoicingly why you guys are taking a different path from the rest of the world. Instead of thinking, oh my gosh, I'm so embarrassed that they assume the worst of me, that we're just shacking up, playing house. If anyone even implies that they think you're living together, take that. Hey, this is the moment to say, oh no. We want our wedding day to be very unique. It's not like we're just going to go through a ceremony, sign a certificate, get a bunch of new Tupperware, and then just go back to what we've been doing for the last 2 years anyway. We're not playing house. We know that the forms of affection that are proper to marriage belong in marriage, and so we're not going to peek under the wrapping paper. We're not going to open the gifts before Christmas. We're going to wait for that special day for God to tell us that we are husband and wife, and then we're going to behave like it. Then we're going to act like it. And so, yeah, I think you've got a role in really redeeming the way that people look at marriage preparation, because, I know realistically, yeah, so many couples are taking that route. And I don't think it's because they don't take marriage seriously. I think a lot of people have been raised in families where they look at their parents' marriage or lack of marriage and they think, I don't want that. I don't want to end up like they ended up getting divorced. And so I'm going to kind of tiptoe into this arrangement. I'm going to kind of test drive it out first, see if this is going to work. But the fact is you can't test drive something that by its very nature is permanent. All the sociological studies have just come very clear that cohabiting prior to marriage does not contribute to marital stability. It makes the couples actually more likely to be unfaithful in marriage, contributes to higher level of marital disillusion, marital abuse. I mean, you name it, there is not a positive correlation to cohabitation and a positive marital outcome. And so be bold. Don't think about your feelings. Oh, I'm so hurt. They're looking at me. Think about me this way. No. This is your chance. This is a golden opportunity to evangelize and explain why you guys are living differently. And in fact, I've heard recently that there's been this burst of young couples doing a actual betrothal process where they're actually going through kind of the old school blessing of the church on the engagement and not just making it a between me and her kind of thing, but drawing the church in, asking her blessings, and doing a betrothal. So I've heard of, so that's something you may want to look into, add that to it. But yeah, don't take this personally. Just look, hey, this is not a personal judgment on me. This is just the way that this person is seeing the world, which is unfortunately really going on. But you and your fiance, God bless the two of you for doing it the right way. So stay strong. It's a teachable moment.
All right. Our next question is, there's a guy I really like. He's an ex-seminarian. How do I show him I'm interested and leave the door open without chasing or being too obvious? Yeah.
Okay, well, first thing I would do is just when you're around him, be actively receptive. Laugh at his jokes if they're even remotely funny. If he is interested in the conversation, just be fully present there. Go where he's going. Like if he's involved in a young adult community and you find out they're all going to go do this salsa dancing or beach bonfire or whatever, just go for it. Just be in his presence, because the way that guys work, I mean, we're, believe it or not, actually remarkably simple creatures. If we are interested even remotely in a woman, we're going to be on the lookout for any cues, any clues that, hey, she's kind of looking my way, she's laughing at my jokes, whatever. Whereas if I'm not interested in her, honestly, because she could be sending all the signals in the world, she could put a billboard in front of my face and I'd probably miss it. But if I'm really wondering, do you think she might be into me? Like I'm interested in her. We're looking for those signals. And so you don't have to do a lot for a guy who's interested to catch on to those signals and take it as an affirmative. Hey, we're heading in the right direction. There seems to be some chemistry here. Let's move in that direction. So, if you're trying these things and you're trying to put yourself out there, you're trying to be present, trying to hang out with his friend circles, and you're really trying to initiate some type of friendship, and it just doesn't seem to be going back. It's probably an indication he's not interested, and that could be different reasons. It could be he's not interested in you, or maybe it's just not the right time. Maybe he just left the seminary and he just wants to take a year of a dating fast or whatever, get his feet back underneath him and kind of discern what direction God is calling him. But a lot of times I think girls make too many excuses for guys as to why he's not pursuing her, and try to not take it too personally. But if you're putting all the signals out there and he's not reciprocating, it's probably because he's not interested. And that could be hard to hear, but I would say just do your part. Just put yourself out there, give it a shot, and hopefully if he's left the seminary, he's discerned, okay, that's not his calling, and so he probably firmly believes that marriage would be the vocation for him, and so hopefully he is open and on the lookout as well. And so I would say, yeah, just make yourself available, be actively receptive, not passive, not overly aggressive, but God willing, somewhere in the middle. And I think if he's interested, he'll definitely respond.
We have a question in the live chat from Maggie
Yeah.
Bach. Thanks for being here, Maggie. What does the Catholic Church teach about modesty? What does the Catholic Church teach about modesty? What is allowed for women? Is it okay to wear pants, or they have to wear skirts and dresses 24/7? I mean, to start with, I think we should recommend our recent video on modesty. So that go watch that video.
Yeah, we did do a recent one on modesty, like 10, 20 minutes long. We're kind of discussing this, so definitely check that out. Josiah will probably put the link somewhere that you can click on. And that caller, or that question that had come in, was asked about, like, if I've got this outfit and I'm kind of wondering, is this too tight? Is this too low? What do you think? I would say if our consciences are properly formed and we're starting to ask ourselves, is this too tight? Is this too low? We've probably answered our own question. Now, some people will say, no, women can't wear pants. That's the end of that. That's just too immodest. They should wear skirts only. Some guys might be like, no, actually, I'm more tempted to lust if a girl's wearing a skirt versus pants. Pants, I couldn't care less. And so I think we need to be careful of not being overly rigid in the terms of like, if you wear pants, you're sinning. If you're not wearing a skirt, you're not as holy as the girls that are wearing the skirt. And so there are church documents, nothing, infallibly declared. If you go back 50, 60, 70 years, you'll find some of these things where like, it should be this far below the ankle or this deep below the collarbone or this or that. And, you could use those as helpful guidelines, but the church will not officially say, hey, you cannot wear this or you are in the state of sin. But what I would encourage, take up a devotion to Our Lady and really learn to love Our Lady. Really, because you become like your friends. This always happens. And so become friends with the saints. Become friends with Our Lady. And you'll realize that modesty is not so much a matter of inches and hemlines. That does play a role, obviously. It's more the disposition of the heart. Like, do I want to wear an outfit that's going to even remotely invite a guy to desire me for what I don't want to be desired for? I think a lot of women in the world today doubt their desirability. And so these types of outfits are a way for an opening they see as a way to get a guy to get interested in her. But the question is he really interested in her for the right reasons? Or is he expressing interest in her because he sees her as a collection of body parts that he wants to acquire? And so that's why modesty has often been presented as the guardian of love. And so try to think of it that way, not as this Victorian, prudish, repressive attitude, this misogynistic idea that, well, if a man lusts, it's all the girl's fault. Her body is the problem. No, the body's not the problem, in my opinion. The body is the answer. The body is an invitation to love. But because of the lust in our hearts, because of original sin, we're tempted to see the body as an invitation to use instead of an invitation to love. And so your sexual value is a real value. And this is what we got into in the last video. But your personal value is greater than your sexual value. And so what modesty does is it kind of forms a hierarchy of values, putting the value of the person above the value of the body. Immodesty tends to have the opposite effect, where the value of the body and sexuality comes first. And then a man must make an act of the will to reorder those by his own power of the will, of like, look, yeah, the sexual value, I see it. It's very clear. Thank you very much. But I want to put your value above it. And so modesty, I think, just gives the guys a head start in looking at you and loving you for the right reasons. And so if you were to Google, church teaching on modesty, this, that, you could find some of those guidelines that had been in place. If you go to St. Peter's, Basilica over in Rome, they'll tell you, they'll have signs on the churches, don't be wearing this in the church. And so this is an issue of decorum, of what is the proper attire in a sacred space. And so I know I've gone to mass before, and lady sitting in front of you is wearing something that like is practically a negligee. And it's like, whoa, like, what do you think when you come? And then there's guys wearing Peyton Manning jerseys and cargo shorts. And it's like, this is a holy place. Like, this is Calvary. Like, that's what the Mass is. We're not going to walk up to Calvary just dressed like we're going to the beach. I mean, this is a serious and sacred moment. And so part of this is decorum. What is the right outfit to wear at the proper time? And then the second aspect of, even when it's a proper time to dress more casually, am I doing it in a way that invites men to realize that there's so much more about me than just my body? So hope that's helpful.
Great. We got some questions on some comments on the dating game show that I think were interesting. Maybe we'll tackle a couple of them next week with Crystal. She and I have talked about them, but the first one I wanted to address was there was a couple of questions of maybe just clarifying, because there was a couple of questions near the end where you and Crystal were saying like, hey, these are the good guys that are out there. There are a couple of comments of women who are scandalized because of the rate of porn usage also found that we got responses in that survey.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you want to clarify or address that.
Yeah. And us saying, hey, these are the good guys. we're not in any way, shape, or form endorsing, oh, well, you can look at porn and that's fine, you're still a great guy. Obviously, we're not going to endorse that idea. But the point that we're getting across is there's so many good men out there who were raised in good Catholic homes, went to Catholic youth group, and really are pursuing the Lord. And, maybe their parents gave them a cell phone when they were 14 years old, and the parents didn't know how to set up internet filter and Canopy or Covenant Eyes or Bark Phone or whatever. They didn't know the tech. And, the kid gets this and like, oh, Instagram, TikTok, whoa, hey, because, these social media apps are not simply engineered by human beings to get you kind of hooked on that. There's now AI itself is designing these personalized algorithms. Okay, you're a 15-year-old boy. What do you want to look at? I think we know what you want to look at. And they're going to show it to them the first day. And if the kid clicks on it, he interacts with it, how many seconds he spends looking at that. It's keeping track of all of that. I'm like, okay, more, just constantly feeding the kid this stuff. And so he's like, okay, I shouldn't look at TikTok. Then he's over at YouTube. He's over at Instagram. Yeah, and you name it, it's coming at him from all these different angles. And he could be really a good guy, but maybe he got sucked into this junk in adolescence, and he wasn't quite sure to, what are the weapons that I can use to break free, and accountability and filtering softwares, and he's wrestling through this. So what you're talking about is a good guy, a man whose heart is in the right place, probably a man of prayer, a man who wants to start his vocation. Maybe he's just been struggling with this and he just finally hasn't broken free, but he's wanting to make progress. He wants a godly relationship. I think we need to make sure not to just totally write off these guys of just incapable of any sacrament, incapable of becoming priest, incapable of getting married, because that'll spin them into a lot of, I think, unnecessary despair. And that's the principal spirit the evil one wants to give after a guy falls, or a woman, is just discouragement. I read a quote from Padre Pio this last week where he talks about always try to keep your peace, because the devil is always, the enemy is always liking to fish in troubled waters. And you think of that, of the soul of a troubled water, and the devil like, oh, I want to go fishing in there because this person has lost their peace. They feel discouraged. And if you have a whole generation of good, godly women that maybe pornography wasn't a struggle for them, and them just being like, well, you're all off the menu just because you've ever struggled with that thing. Well, what if he used to struggle with it, every single day? And then it became once a week, and then it became once a month, and now it's once every 6 months. And look at the tracking, look at the progress, and you're going to be like, nope, not for me. You looked at those pictures, I don't want that. Hey, it's your right to choose that. Like, if you want to only marry a man who's never seen a single pornographic image, that's your choice. I think that's going to significantly narrow down your selection that you can pick from a spouse, because unfortunately the question today isn't so much if the guy's going to see porn, but when. And then, do they have what they need to break free from that? Now, all of that having been said, when I talk to the guys, I'm pretty darn firm. If you guys are still looking at porn, you got no business asking a woman on a date. You just don't. You can't ask a woman to commit to you unless you are prepared to be faithful to her. You just can't do it. In fact, I know a young adult woman I met was so frustrated because she'd go on the date with these Christian guys, and then she'd start to really start to like them. And then 4, 5, 6 dates into it, and the relationships really start to take off. Then she finds out about the porn addiction. And she's like, are you kidding me? Like, look, no, you got to deal with this stuff. I'm not going to put up with a mistress. I'm not going to put up with you having, as C.S. Lewis called them, a harem of imaginary brides. I ain't going to do it. And so she just cut it off and say, look, I'm not going to move forward in a relationship until you've cut the head out of this thing off. It doesn't mean that you don't have temptations, but I'm not going to compete with that junk. And it came so often that she was going through this process. She was really getting discouraged. And then she decided, I'm just going to bring up porn on the first date with any guy. Are you looking at this stuff? If so, no second date. And what if and some guys got really offended by that. Like, oh, how dare you ask me that? But think about it. If you were really broken free or really fighting hard to break free, and someone raised that question to you on a first date, you wouldn't get offended. You'd be like, hey, I could totally see you wanting to bring that up, and here's the progress that I've made, because you've got a right to know if I'm going to be dealing with this garbage 5 years into our marriage, and our 8-year-old daughter is stumbling onto my internet history and getting scandalized, and maybe getting hooked herself after discovering my addiction. It becomes her own, because I've seen that happen in the high school girls that I've spoken to. And so, yeah, I think you've got a right to this information. as a female and early on in the relationship. But I think that no guy should be gaslighting you to think that you're the problem if you want to know the answer to these questions. But I don't think if he's had a past that he's immediately off the menu. The question is, does he have enough history behind him of sobriety and freedom to the point where I don't think he's just going to fall back into it the first time we get in a fight, the first time things get difficult between us, or he gets stressed out at work, he's just going to run back to the porn sites. If he's made some serious progress, maybe he's got 6 months of sobriety behind him, I think you could, in peace, move forward in that relationship, knowing hopefully that he's got accountability in place, hopefully got a good spiritual director, filters where they need to be. I think you could move forward in peace, knowing that these are good guys and they've had legitimate struggles. But if he's taking ownership and he's making progress, I wouldn't write him off. There's some really more than decent guys who've just gotten entangled with this junk earlier than they knew how to battle it, but have made significant progress, and I think would make godly husbands and good fathers. But it will take a good deal of discernment on your part, getting a good spiritual director. Hey, do you think, we're ready to, date, ready to get engaged? How far is this in the rear view mirror of this man's life? Not only how long was he addicted, but what was the severity of the addiction? Was he doing stuff in person with people? Was it live in person stuff? Was he asking for pictures? Was it just some struggle he had on TikTok? It helps to have a general idea of the degree. Was this a full-blown, addiction where he needs some mental health services to kind of break free from that? Or is it just some hangover from some junior high, difficulties he had, and he's made a lot of progress? So a lot to consider there, but please don't write off all Catholic or Christian guys just because they've struggled with that thing in the past. Many of them are overcoming it, and so with your prayers and support, I think a lot of times a good woman can bring out the best in a man.
I think can I add
No,
one
please
small
do.
thing to
Yeah,
that?
please do.
Yeah, I think actually two things. First of all, I want to stress how much the social media algorithms are like damaging this. Like they can tell which pictures you look at longer. So if you're scrolling through a social media feed and you see a woman dressed scantily and you look at it for a little longer, then you look at, a picture of a dog as, biologically is likely to happen, the algorithm will recognize that and give you more of it. So that's one thing I don't think people realize how bad those are. The other thing is I really like what you said about like if it's in the past, that's like you need to it's a good thing to recognize that and give those guys a second chance. And I think just like we would say to guys with women with pasts, like if it's in the past, you should give them a second chance. I really think that like those two things can be seen in parallel.
No,
That's all. Yeah.
No, I think that's super helpful, both of those points. And I just saw this last week. I shared some funny Instagram reel with Kristalina, just some funny marriage video. And, she was cracking up. And then, I don't know, it was later the same day I was on Instagram for something, and it was just marriage. Like all these like funny marriage videos are, I'm like, wow. I mean, it must have known that I shared it, and it just started flooding me with more of that content. But then to your second point, I've lost count of how many couples that I've talked to where the guy just couldn't take the fact that his bride-to-be or his fiance or his girlfriend or prospective girlfriend wasn't a virgin. And because she wasn't the spotless virgin, he just couldn't bear that. And he would rub her nose in it, or he'd kind of hold it over her head, or he'd be pouty or distant. And, and they'll email me like, dude, what do I do? I just can't bear the thought of her being with these other guys, and how am I going to manage this? And it's a difficult thing because we've got to understand, like, are you marrying her to get her virginity? It's not like some white elephant gift exchange. I give you yours, you give me mine, even Steven. I understand the good and aspiration of the hopes that you had, that this would be your first time together on your wedding night. We have that beautiful vision so many people raised in the church. But, life happens sometimes. And, maybe her virginity was taken from her. Maybe it was just a dumb decision she made back in high school or college or whatever. And maybe she regrets it more even than you do. But to hold that over her head is just not fair. And so that's why I tell the women, don't be discouraged that no good guy would want you because of your past. If he judges you by your past, then he's not that good of a guy. hold out for a man who can see your future instead of one who's always rubbing your nose in the past. Because we all have our past, one thing or the other. And if you're with a guy who just can't bear the fact that you had made some mistake in the past, I'm sorry, that's not something you want hanging over your head for the rest of your natural life. And, maybe he's struggling with it, but the struggle is getting better. And it's like, yeah, it used to really bother me. And still, yeah, it's kind of a burn my saddle, but it's not the end of the world. Maybe you need to talk it through with him. And, many of you know my story with Kristalina, that I got married as a virgin. And, she's very open in sharing her past, how she had lost her virginity when she was 15 years old, raised in a fatherless home, and just made some real poor decisions, and she doesn't just blame the guys. Oh, they were just using me. She owns it. Like, I was using them, they were using me, and I just came to the point where I'm sick of this. Like, this isn't love. And she turned her life around. And I've never once in our whole relationship, and we're getting ready to have our 22nd wedding anniversary coming up in about a month, I've never once held that over her head. It's been hard in moments, because like when she told me, it was definitely a big surprise. I had no idea what she had been through in the past, the decisions that had been made. And then we're doing chastity talks together, and I'm having to hear her share her testimony sometimes 3-4 times a day. And, kind of sitting there on stage as her boyfriend or her fiance or her husband, hearing her tell the story of her being with other guys. What do you do with that? Guys last month, dude, how did you even process that? And, how do you not let that fester and turn into resentment or bitterness or insecurity or anger? And so what I would do if those emotions started to kind of well up in me, one, I would talk to her, but also realize I need to also handle this on my own. I can't just be bringing this up constantly. So I would say, okay, God, what am I supposed to do at this moment and these feelings? So the first thing I would do is I would pray for her. And I would pray for her for healing of her memories. And it was the weirdest thing. Like, she told me years later, she's like, Jesus, it's the weirdest thing. Like, I know that stuff happened, but she's like, I don't even remember it. Like, just the visual, any details, everything is just kind of just fogged over. And I think it's the fruit of those prayers of healing for the memory. But I wouldn't stop there. Then I would also pray for the guys in her past. I've never met any of them. But I would just pray for them. I would pray for their conversion, for their healing, for their, God willing, their own future marriages. And, God willing, in heaven, I'll get to meet these guys and get to see the fruit of that prayer and that redemptive suffering offered in their direction. And that way, I'm not growing bitter at Kristalina, resentful. If I ever saw these guys, I want to punch them in the face. Like, giving into that type of unforgiveness is not going to help anybody. And so that way I was actually doing something constructive with those feelings instead of letting them be destructive to our relationship. But in the end, if a guy can't put up with a woman's past, or she can't put up with his, I think you need to let go of that person, because I think they deserve to have a person who can love them, warts and all, the scar tissue, the whole 9 yards. All of us got it one way or another. And if a guy can't put up with the girl's past, I think he needs to let her go for her own sake, so that she can be loved by a guy who recognizes not only the stuff that she's done in the past, but recognizes who she is today, because that's who you get to marry. And yeah, granted, our decisions in the past, they do shape and form us in particular ways, but provided true conversion has taken place. One thing Kristalina and I realized, that even though she had done those things long in the past, she was a new creation when I met her. And so, when we are able to get married, to experience that, the one flesh union as a sacrament is a first for somebody who's made mistakes in the past, that they've never consummated marriage. Salvador Dali, the artist, he said the only way to make love is as a sacrament. And so even if your partner has a bad past, know that you can at least look forward to that as a first together.
Awesome. There's a how far is too far question in the live chat that I
Okay.
don't think I've ever heard you answer before. This is an interesting spin on how far is too far.
Okay, let's see.
Um, is it important for young children to see their parents kiss and hug within the household? How much is enough and how far is too far? I know it was clickbait, but
Okay.
I figured this would be a great clip later,
Yeah.
and so I had to throw the clickbait intro in. The live will forgive me.
Oh no,
My job.
make the kids squirm in a healthy way. So if they see it enough, they kind of get desensitized to it in a good way. of just like dad pursues mom, mom pursues dad. In fact, in the scriptures, when it says a man shall leave his father and his mother and cleave to his wife, the two shall become, and the two shall become one flesh. The Hebrew word for cleave does not mean cling, like a barnacle on a side of the ship or like some tick or something like that. It doesn't mean to just cling like that. The word for cleave can actually be translated in the Hebrew as hotly pursue, meaning the man leaves the father and the mother and he gets married, and then he hotly pursues the wife. Imagine if kids got to see this. I met a woman once, and she says, Jason, I've been married for 30 years. She said, do you know the last date my husband took me on was the night he proposed to me 30 years ago, and he's never taken me on another date since. 3 decades, no dates. I mean, God bless those kids, but they're going to have no clue how to date because they never saw their father pursue their mother. And so I think it's important to be physically affectionate and romantic in front of the kids. It's supposed to be that way. Otherwise, what are they going to see? Like, affection is something you only express before you get married with your boyfriend or girlfriend. Like, what is it supposed to look like? And so, yeah, I think they should kiss. And obviously, and it comes... how far is too far? You obviously want to reserve for privacy, anything of an arousing nature. And so make the distinction here between affection and arousal. Affection in front of the kids, absolutely. A kiss, absolutely. To just embrace her, to hug her hard, to pick her up in your arms, sweep her off her feet, big kiss. Great, that's affection. That's healthy. Arousal, save that for the private, save that behind closed doors. Kids don't need to see that. I mean, that's creeping them out on a whole next level that they do not need to be exposed to. But if your teenagers are squirming because you kiss your wife, it probably just means you need to kiss her more around the kids, more often, the hugs, to the point where the kids realize, yeah, this should be happening. Mom and dad should be affectionate to each other. I remember growing up, my grandparents were on both sides had lifelong marriages, 60, 70 plus years of marriage. And I remember my grandpa Joe, my maternal grandfather, he and Grandma Mary, I mean, their names were Joseph and Mary, and they had 10 kids. So you're not going to beat that. Coolest thing about them, they'd flirt with each other a lot. And I just kind of grew up watching. I remember walking to the kitchen. My grandma's mixing something up, some awesome meatballs. And Grandpa walks in, and he's feeling kind of frisky. And he sees her, and he walks over, and he's like, whap, and he slaps her in the thigh. And he's like, hi, my name's Joe. And she looks at him, and she's like, I know. And I'm like, that's awesome. Like 100 years old, and they're still flirting. And so flirt with your spouse in front of the kids. Be playful, be affectionate. This is so healthy for their development of that marriage is supposed to still be alive after 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. You don't just kind of settle down and get bored with each other. And so please pursue each other in front of the kids, pursue each other when the kids aren't watching. The best thing you can do is to love your spouse. They say the best thing a father can do is to love the mother of his children, to love your wife. It gives the kids a sense of deep security. When that's not there, there's a lack of security. That are we sure mom and dad are going to stay together? Like, what could happen? What would it be like if this one left, that one left? The amount of instability and security that puts into the heart of a young kid is just not good. And so the more affectionate you can be around them, the better, but just make sure to draw the line. This is affection. This is not arousal. That belongs elsewhere.
Excellent. That's fun.
Yeah.
Sorry for the clickbait. I was like, this is going to be a clip later, and so I'm going to throw the intro on. This is an interesting question. Yep. From email, so we'll stay anonymous. Last week, you said that you are ontologically against dads staying at homes with their kids, but fine with mothers working outside the home as much as they want. Why do you hold men to the traditional standards, but support women going against traditional standards and working long full-time jobs outside of the home, even though studies show women inside the homes is better for, it goes on. So
yeah. Well, just to clarify what it said there, I think we need to look at as much as I want. That needs to be prayerfully discerned, where the woman's like, well, I want to work 50 hours a week, and I'm just going to stuff the kids in daycare, and they don't need me around because I want this, and the husband better support me. That's not my position. My position would be that it's important that the father, as much as he's able to support the family, and if she wants to have some work, ministry on the side kind of thing, good on her. But to me, I think for her to take on like a full-time job when it's not necessary, I think that would be detrimental to the kids because you're going to, for one, as they say, you are replaceable in the workforce, but you are irreplaceable at home. And I remember, I think it was, Barbara Walters at the end of her journalistic career was asked if she had, greatest achievements, greatest regrets. And her greatest regret is I just didn't have kids. It was just all about the career, work, 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 work. And I think mothers feel that if they work too much and then they just weren't around. They missed this milestone. They couldn't be at that because they were at a board meeting. Is it really necessary for you guys to double your income? I think what's more necessary, the father work as hard as he can and realistically. And the point of that is to afford the presence of a parent at home. Now, in terms of what's traditional in terms of work for a woman, if you read the Old Testament, the women worked. They did. I mean, you read the ideal spouse and what is it, Proverbs 31? It's talking about how she's a hard worker. Now, granted, she probably wasn't going to a factory 9 to 5. She's probably doing a lot of that work at home in the presence of the children, not dumping them off at some like rabbinical daycare or whatever. But yeah, I would not endorse the idea that, he has to work and then she can just work as much as she wants, because I think there could be a disorder in her wanting to escape from the domestic life, of just seeing it as a burden. And instead of realizing this might be a sacrifice for her, but it's the best gift she could possibly give to her children is her presence. Day's going to come where they're up all and gone. And I know you get stressed out. I just clean the windows and there's fingerprints over here and there's socks over here and I can't even match that shoe. And the, laundry room looked like a Category 5 hurricane just blew through it. But all these things that we feel like are just impinging upon our freedom, there's going to come a day where the windows almost look too clean. There's no pitter-patter of feet running down the hallway. All the laundry is just kind of staying where it is. The rooms are empty. The kids are off at college or they got married, and man, it just seems too quiet. And in that moment, you're not going to look back and be like, I wish I got to more board meetings. You'd be like, man, I wish I just could have been present a little bit more on that school play, that ball game, or just reading to bed at night. I wish I just could have been there for school pickups to see them jump into my arms, or maybe I could have homeschooled a little bit. None of us are going to have regrets of wanting to be in the office a little bit too more. None of us are going to have that. But I think we're all going to look back and did I put family first? To me, that's first and foremost. That's what creates authentic happiness, is just bonding with the people that you love, not simply worldly achievements that allow you to move into a higher income bracket. Once you reach a certain level of income, happiness doesn't change. I've told my kids that, like, you're telling me if I had $1 billion, I wouldn't be happier if I were making $100,000. I'm like, no, you wouldn't. And like, I don't believe that. I'm pulling up the studies and I'm showing them like, no, in the end, that is not what makes you happy, is just getting lots of things. Because you think before you need it, I need that thing, then you get it. It's exciting for several minutes. And then it's like, okay, what's the next thing? What's the next thing? It's just the accumulation of objects is not what brings joy in life, but human connection. And so, yeah, just to clarify, my position is not he's got to work and then she can work as much as she wants to the detriment of the children. I'm with you. I don't think that would be a healthy way to build a family in time or for eternity.
That's great. I think one thing also, what you're saying, and the way I've found to make it most clear to people is that you'll see the mother working in the Old Testament, and you also saw it kind of in Christendom at the normative state of a Christian society. It was always a participation in the work of the husband.
Yeah.
So that's a good metric for discernment.
Yeah, and the challenge then back to, typically the children took on as an apprentice to the father. The son was working in the workshop with the father. It really wasn't with the industrial age where we have nowadays, where you're just up and gone 9 hours a day. Like historically, that's just not the way it ever was. And so to the extent that father as well as mother can be present more often in the family, if there's any way to work from home a little bit more, go for it. And believe me, I know the challenges of even attempting to get any type of work done while you've got 8 kids home over the summer. It's just nuts. They just want to play endlessly. So I understand the challenges there. But the reason I had mentioned ontologically the man needs to work is that if the marriage is ordered towards procreation in the family. And so there's going to be a time, God willing, that the woman does become pregnant. And so are we expecting her to work 40 hours a week while she's pregnant, breastfeeding? Okay, you got your maternal leave, put the kid in daycare at, 3 months old. It's like, I don't think this is what most women want. I know it's not what the baby wants, and so I know sometimes it's necessary for the income to make ends meet. But to the extent that you're able, the more both parents can be home, in my opinion, the better.
Great. Yeah, that's great. Um, all right. I have a question discerning when to marry. I'm 19 years old and just finished my first year of university. I'm in a relationship with the girl for over 3 months now. We've talked about marriage. We're both devout Catholics. We've talked about marriage, building a family together, and we look forward to marrying each other in the future. My question is, how long should we wait to get married until we are financially secure, or until we're financially secure? Wow, that sentence. Should we wait until we're financially secure to commit our lives to each other? If being in a relationship with this girl is discern marriage, then why wait right once we've discerned to spend the rest of our lives with this someone, should we not make it official? Thank you so much.
No, good question. I mean, a lot to consider there. I mean, historically, people are getting married later than they ever have in American civilization. This is the first time in American history where most Americans are single. Like, this has never happened before. And the median age at which I think women marry is something like 28, 29 years old. Like, we've never seen this. Is there wisdom in doing it? I mean, some studies have shown that couples who marry and their ages add up to at least 50 tend to have greater marital stability, where maybe he's 26 and she's 24, he's 25, she's 25. Part of that, I think, is one, you do have a little bit more life experience. Two, the part of the brain that's in charge of critical thinking is more fully developed in your mid-20s than it is at the age of 19. So you might be making better choices. But I also think that people mature today slower than they ever have. I mean, people were getting married at the age of 18, 19, our grandparents, that's pretty much when they got married, and they've had long, happy, stable marriages, right? But they also matured faster in the terms of economics. They were starting up jobs. They were able to financially take care of a family at the age of 19. Where today, at the age of 19, you've already accumulated like $90,000 in college debt. And it's like, okay, what do we do? We're in a dorm. I can hardly afford an apartment. And we're going to, what if we get pregnant with triplets right out the gate? Like, am I ready for the joys and the responsibilities that marriage might place upon me? And so when Crystal and I got married, I was, I think, 27 years old when we got married. And, I had a job, I had stability, and we wanted a family right away. And thanks be to God, we got blessed with one. I mean, 3 weeks after we got married, we're expecting our first. And our first, though, had a lot of medical problems, like a lot, still does. And we paid, I think, like $30,000 in medical bills after health insurance, like I think the first year and a half of his life, just so we could have the best doctors taking care of all the medical challenges that he was going through. And so I think you've got to hope for the best, but prepare for the worst in terms of like, okay, let's say we want to get married. And you don't want to have an interminably long engagement. I don't think those are helpful. Like, yeah, we're married. Oh, go. That's great. We're engaged. That's great. When are you guys going to get married? I think we're looking at 2031 in September. It's like, let's try to keep engagements a little more realistic. Maybe 6-9 months is my opinion. Because you can think, okay, let's say we want to get engaged and her parents are on board, my parents are on board, and they're like, yeah, you guys are really mature, you're a perfect fit, you've dealt with all your issues, why put it off? Then the next stage is, okay, let's say we do get married, 9 months from now, whatever, a baby comes around, let's say 9 months from then, okay, 18 months from now, am I going to be in a position financially to take care of a family? You don't have to have a 3-car garage and, 6-figure income, but plotting out your career future, would you be in a place where you could take care of some of those bills that are going to roll in? This is not delaying love, in my opinion. It's preparing for love. And so a measure of prudence needs to be had here. It isn't simply a measure of like, they're a devout Catholic, I'm a devout Catholic, I'm mature, she's mature, and we're in love. Are you going to have a job? Are you going to still have 2 years of classes left? And if you've got 2 years of classes, what type of income can you generate during that time? And so this is a decision to make with you and your family, because maybe you're living in an area where the cost of living frankly isn't exorbitant, and you don't want to have this extravagant gala of a wedding party that's going to cost you $90,000 to get married with all the bells and whistles. And maybe I know of some couples that instead of having this extravagant wedding reception, they just had people donate to a service project of their choice, a charity, and they took all the money that people were going to give to them and all the money they were going to spend, and they just gave it to the poor instead. This is an option. You don't need to have a $500 a head, wedding reception. It's up to you guys. If that, and maybe the bride said, but my dream has always been to have this and that. Hey, go with it. Support her in her dreams. Maybe you want things more simple. These are the conversations to have with each other if an engagement perhaps is looming, because they can help you to make prudent decisions in terms of financially. I'd like to really keep things simple, and she wants to have it in Dubai, on some, island paradise, whatever resort. Like, yeah, talk these things out. See if you're on the same page. Yeah, I'd like it simple. Me too. I'd like to have kids right away. Well, I'd rather wait 5 years before we have kids. These are the tough conversations you want to have to make sure you're on the same page. Get a good spiritual director. Talk to her family. Talk to your family. Because if you've got that posse, if you've got a people who love you, who are wise, who are prayerful, and you bring your thoughts before them, they're going to help you sift through. Like, yeah, we think you guys are a great team, but I'm thinking maybe a year and a half from now, you guys be in a better position. The more input you can get from the more people whose opinions you love and respect, the more likely you are to make a prudent choice. So I hope that helps.
I will say, Jason won't say it, but I'll say it. If you are dating a woman and she wants a wedding in Dubai, run. That woman's crazy.
Unless you guys live in Dubai. If you live in Dubai, that's fine.
Unless you live in Dubai, yeah.
She could be from Dubai, and then you just want to fly over there. That's fine. So
if she's from Dubai, that's one thing. If it's an American woman who wants a Dubai wedding, you run.
Yeah, run
you
fast.
Run fast.
Very fast.
All right. This is an email question, so we're anonymous on this one again. Most of the women at my Newman Center, even the devout ones who attend Bible study and daily mass, dress immodestly in yoga pants, mini skirts, and post bikini pictures online. Should I lower my standards,
No.
maybe even date Protestants, or should I wait for someone who is more advanced in their walk with God? Yeah, I knew you were not even going to let me get to the end of that one.
Yeah. As soon as you say, should I lower my standards? I don't care what the question is. The answer is no. No, keep your standards high as heaven for sure. But I wonder if there's a way to indirectly form them. For example, we've got a couple of books for young adults. One is called The Dating Blueprint for the Guys. For the women, we've got one called How to Find Your Soulmate Without Losing Your Soul. At chastity.com, you can get these things in bulk. And if you can't afford them, a lot of people don't know, we have another website called missionariesofchastity.com. You can go directly to it or link from chastity.com. And if you want to give out chastity resources for free, you launch a project. Hey, we're a bunch of nuns in Peru, and we want to give away your Spanish books to the girls of the orphanage. They launch the project. We announce it on social media. Hey, the sisters in this hermitage are doing this thing. Click here to donate to the project. People click, they donate. It does crowdfunding. And then when the thermometer reaches the goal, it sends it out. And the free books just arrive at the convent. College students do this, high school students. If you're not in a place where, in a budgetary way that you could afford to give these gifts or buy these books, and we do sell them really cheap on the website in bulk. You can get them by boxes at a time for like $4 a pop. Finances are tight. We got you covered. You could maybe talk to whoever's in charge of the Bible study and say, hey, I was thinking, let's do like a 7-week study on these books where the girls can read their book, the guys can read their book. And, we're just going to tackle this, the whole subject of dating, relationships, sexuality, and I'll donate the resources. If they'd be on board with that, then the women would all be exposed to the message of modesty in the How to Find Your Soulmate Without Losing Your Soul book. And so it's kind of an indirect way to help form that kind of sample population there. And, maybe and I wouldn't necessarily say, hey, if she's wearing yoga pants, don't even consider dating her. Maybe she's just raised in a culture, because look, trust me, I've talked to these high school girls where the moms are buying them these outfits from the time they're like in 4th grade.
We had this conversation in a meeting the other day, dude. Can you tell people this thing? It shocked me.
No, it's bonkers. I mean, I'm going to Catholic high schools. We are at one high school where the girls' plaid skirts could literally be mistaken for wide belts. Okay. I mean, that's what was going on. And after the assembly, I lovingly pulled the principal aside, and I'm a straight shooter. And I said, ma'am, you're doing a great job here and a great job there. And thank you so I made sure to really affirm all the good stuff I was seeing on campus. But I said, I'm all shoot straight with you. The girls' skirts at your high school are the shortest skirts I have seen in any Catholic high school in the United States of America in the last 100+ assemblies I have given. And the campus minister was right there, and they were both not offended. They were actually really grateful that I called them out on it. And I'm like, look, and the principal, and I said, look, and I kind of prefaced the remark of being like, look, I know when it comes to this stuff, the parents are more the issue than the girls are. And the principal was like, I know. We tell them this is the length. Then the parents take the girls' skirts to get professionally hemmed and shortened up so that the girl can have the cutest, shortest little skirt. The parents are paying for the stuff. And if I say, no, it's got to be down here and you're going to get attention, we're going to have a mutiny on our hands. Not only the girls saying we're misogynistic, but the moms are calling in and complaining and screaming. And I said, yeah, you're going to take some heat. But I said, as it is now, like the inmates are running the asylum, the inmates being the moms, who probably need a chastity talk more than the 16-year-old daughter does. And so maybe a girl in your young adult community was raised in such a household where modesty was kind of frowned upon, looked at some like prudish Victorian idea. And it's kind of, she just grew up with this stuff. But if she could learn a little bit about more modesty, perhaps she could make a fantastic wife and a wonderful girlfriend. And so I wouldn't necessarily say if she's got yoga pants, don't consider dating her. I obviously think if she's wearing that she could use some, understanding in terms of modesty. Another good book that explains it is Emotional Virtue by Sarah Swafford. She has a chapter in there called Don't Shoot the Messenger, where she talks about modesty. And in that, she interviews guys, asking them what they think about modesty in different outfits. And the guys are real blunt, where they're like, yeah, basically, if you're wearing yoga pants, it's basically like you painted your skin. Like there's nothing left for the imagination. It's like, oh, one of the guys was like, okay, well, I know what you look like in your underwear now. That was the response of these college guys saying what they thought, thinking of these outfits. And so if you could share a resource, many women don't understand because, they could watch Elf, and see Will Ferrell in tights, and they're like, oh, that's funny. That's not a big deal. Whereas, if a woman is wearing those things, the woman's the most beautiful thing God put on the earth. And when we see so much of this beauty, sometimes it eclipses the dignity of the woman herself. And so there's a proper time and place to reveal ourselves to others. But I remember Wendy Shalit, who wrote that book, A Return to Modesty. She said, a woman who's practically naked in front of strangers has little left to reveal to her lover. And so maybe if you can give them some resources, Emotional Virtue, How to Find Your Soulmate Without Losing Your Soul, while the guys at the same time are reading about male modesty, Dating Blueprint, Modesty of Intentions, things like that. That way it's not like, oh, you girls need the police and us guys have it together. Propose this to the leader of the young adult community. So that way, instead of just writing off the girls, you can take an active role in not only forming them in their consciences, but forming yourselves as well. Josiah, any other thoughts on that one?
I have a great thought, actually.
Okay, glad I asked.
I think, I mean, if I do say so myself, if you have a Newman Center, you probably have focus missionaries.
Uh-huh.
And I remember from my time in college, briefly before I dropped out, that the women's focus missionaries were phenomenal. I mean, the men were too, but the ladies were phenomenal. And they would, I know all the ones I knew would, if I went to them and said, hey, I have this concern, I'd like it to be anonymous if you would like speak to the women about it. At least the ones I knew would like more than willingly be like, oh, I appreciate you bringing that up. I will keep that anonymous, and I'll mention to the ladies that some of the guys in the community feel like, the way you're dressing makes them less attracted to you because they're worried about modesty, and also it's like not, respond, am I my brother's keeper, that kind of thing. So if you have women's focused missionaries around, or even like a specific leader that's for the women's community, maybe just going to them in confidence and just saying like, hey, please tell me you're seeing this too.
Yeah. Yeah, no, good
Yeah.
point. Because Focus, for those of you who are not familiar, is Fellowship of Catholic University Students, similar to SPO, St. Paul's Outreach. These are awesome gifts to the church right now of evangelization taking place on college campuses. College is coming up soon. Any parents watching this or anyone thinking about what college do I pick, go to Focus's website. I think it's just focus.org and click on their different campuses and see, like, because if you're trying to think, hey, should I go to Texas A&M or should I go to this university? And then click on the campus and see if they've got Focus missionaries there. And if they do, I think that should automatically bump up your choice for a college like that, because there are some colleges that, maybe the vast majority of the campus is an absolute den of iniquity, but if they have a focus group on campus, typically that's an absolute oasis of faith and orthodoxy and evangelization and catechesis. And so you think of a place like Texas A&M, University of Lincoln, Nebraska, University of Illinois. Texas A&M, they have their own Catholic dorm there. They've got I think 3,000 college students going typically on Sunday masses. It's an extraordinary place what they've got going on. So whether it's St. Paul's Outreach or the Fellowship of Catholic University Students, if you're going to pick a college, get plugged into these people before you even set foot on campus. Like if you're a parent of a high school seniors graduating, get in touch with the Focus missionaries. Hey, my son's going to be starting classes mid-August. They'll be like, hey, we got a tailgate barbecue party on August 17th. Bring them down. My name's John. I'll be there. Please bring your son. Because typically if these missionaries don't meet a student the first week of college, they probably won't meet them for all 4 years. And so your kids may be going to college kind of afraid, like, I hardly know anybody who's going to be my friend. And then they just pair off with someone they met at freshman orientation. You have no clue what that person's values are, maybe their roommate. No, get them plugged in to the Newman Center, to the Focus, to the SPO Outreach. Get them plugged in before they set foot on campus, and it could change the trajectory of the next 4 years of their life and eternity. But yeah, circling it back to the modesty question, talk to these female missionaries. We have donated so many books to the Focus missionaries. They launch a lot of these projects. We send them out the books, and then they just use them for catechesis. So don't give up on these women just because they're wearing yoga pants, but maybe take an active role as a brother in Christ to help them to see, hey, we want to love you rightly. And modesty is a good tool to have when it comes to inviting the respect and the love that you deserve.
Well, I think that's where we're going to call it because we only got 5 minutes left, and
Okay.
we don't have any easy questions left. Let me check the live stream. Maybe we got some easy questions left. Uh, here's an easy one.
Okay.
What are your thoughts on women veiling? It was in the live chat, so there you go. That's a quick, short one.
Oh, I think it's beautiful. I don't think you should look down on someone if they're not veiling. But my wife, Kristalina, she wears a veil at our mass, and many, many other women do too. My teenage daughter, she's doesn't come to mass in a veil. She chooses not to. Fine. So to me, if it's helping you to pray, helping you enter into prayer, St. Paul has a mysterious language in Corinthians where he talks about women veiling for the sake of the angels. And it's like, what is he getting at there? For the sake of the angels, she's veiling her beauty. And I've noticed too that when women are veiled, I think guys are less likely to get distracted. Oh, there's a beautiful woman. There's a beautiful woman. There's a beautiful woman. Like, it's almost like the woman is zoned in on Christ. And so the man should be following that lead as well and be like, okay, she's focused on Christ and I need to be focused on his beauty rather than on hers. But again, I wouldn't say, oh, you're a sinner if you're not wearing a veil. But if you want to wear one and you're kind of nervous or shamed, Kristalina actually wrote a blog on this and put it on chastity.com. So if you go to chastity.com, go into the blogs, type in veil Kristalina, you'll probably be able to pull up the blog that she wrote on why she wears a veil when she goes to mass. So I think it's a beautiful devotional. So if you're afraid to wear it, I'd say, hey, give it a shot. I think Veils by Lily. I think that's where my wife gets her veils. There's all kinds of beautiful ones you can get online. But yeah, don't be afraid. If you feel God might be calling you to do it, give it a shot. A lot of times people come up to you complimenting, oh my goodness, I haven't seen a veil in so many years. I've got mine tucked away. I'm going to start bringing mine too. And usually it starts this like a trend where a lot of people are starting to bring them out again. So to me, it's a sign of a return to reverence in the liturgy, which is long overdue. I think everybody wants more reverent liturgies instead of the circus show that we've seen in the liturgy from the 80s and the 90s and so on. I think that that pendulum, thanks be to God, is swinging back, and the presence of veils is a sign of that.
Veils are beautiful. My girlfriend has insanely stunning, like copper red hair, and I'm very glad she veils because it would be very hard to focus.
And women don't get that. Like women, I mean, maybe girls get distracted by men in their hair. I don't know. But
Oh
yeah,
gosh.
veils definitely help men to lock in. I think on what matters
Yeah,
during
they
mass.
really do. I mean, it sounds embarrassing to say it, but no, it helps. We appreciate it.
Yeah.
All right. So we'll be back next week, everybody. Uh, we didn't get any live calls this week. We had some people in the stage. I did mention in the Discord that if you want to call in, you can raise your hand. Unfortunately, we're done for the week, but if you want to call in, join the Discord server and join the stage channel when we're live, raise your hand. We'll bring you up. Send email questions to live@chastity.com. Leave comments on this video. I review the comments before every show and look for questions we might want to ask. And we also take comments from the live chat. So I don't know why you would be watching this while we're live next week, but if you are for some reason, go over there and ask us a question. Yeah. Anything you got to add, Jason? Oh, subscribe to Patreon. Patrons get first shot at calls and email questions. Um,
Yeah,
yes.
and if you want this message to spread, please like, subscribe, and comment. That interaction with the video itself causes YouTube to show the video to more people. So you might walk away, wow, that was really good. That question was really helpful. But if you want other people to see what you saw, just doing those three little simple things help us to spread the message, grow the channel, and reach more souls.
Yeah. Also, as Jason mentioned, I put the Modesty video link in the description and I put Crystalina's blog post in the description. So if you're looking for either of those resources, they are in the description below. Alrighty, everybody. God bless you. Have a good
Okay.
week.
Take care.
You want to end the stream there, Jason? I can't get on your
Sure.
computer for some reason. It's lagged.
Alrighty, let's see. Finish. Finito.